Transparency gives you the ability to make parts of your images less opaque, and you can even retain any kind of transparency or alpha mask that you create in Photoshop and use it right in your Illustrator file. And I'll show you that in just a moment. As you see here in my layers, I'm going to select the eye of this character, and I'll actually zoom in a little bit. Once I have it selected, I can go to my transparency panel, and then I can reduce the opacity by using the slider here, or entering my own value by highlighting these numbers. So I'm going to go all the way down to 0, and now the eye is completely transparent. Let me go ahead and put that back. I'm going to show you something else that's kind of interesting as well. If I make a couple of copies of these eyes, and I group them together, I'll go to Object, Group, and then I drop the opacity, you'll notice that I'm able to see all the way through the objects themselves. And that's where this option comes in here. This is called a knockout group. When you have a group of objects, you can prevent the transparency from affecting the entire group. So I can go ahead and do this, turn that option off, and you'll see that we have a big difference there. I'm going to ungroup that now and show you that if I select them again and I drop the opacity, we're able to see through each of these objects. So if I group them once again and I put the knockout group on, that prevents me from seeing all the way through the other objects. Okay, let me undo a lot of this to get back to my one eye here. And I'm going to show you something else. I'm going to go to Photoshop now. And I'm going to create a brand new document. I'm going to go to File, New. And I'm going to make sure the background contents are transparent, just so you can see what the transparency looks like in Photoshop. These checkerboards are not really going to print out at all. This is just to show you that there's something transparent here. Now earlier, I opened the file called Ducky. And Ducky is located in your Samples folder in your Photoshop folder if you purchased Photoshop and installed it. So you'll find this in your Samples folder. What I'm going to do here is grab my magic wand, select the white area of the duck, and I'm going to choose Select Inverse. Now I have Ducky selected and not the white areas. I'm going to go to Edit, Copy, and then I'm going to go back to this blank file here and choose Edit, Paste. Now you see that we have transparency around Ducky instead of that white area. I'm going to save this as a native Photoshop file on my desktop. I'll call it Ducky. And I'm going to save it in the format Photoshop, which is .psd, Photoshop document. Then I'll save that once again on my desktop. Now I'm going to go back to Illustrator and I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to go to my layers and I'm going to create a brand new layer here. As you see, I'm going to rename this Ducky. And on this layer, first of all, you have to make sure it's not locked, because you can't place anything if it's on a locked layer. I'm going to go to File, Place, and on my desktop, here's Ducky.psd. I'll bring him in, and voila, the transparency is retained. So you can also drop the opacity of this character down, even though he has transparency on him, so you can see through him. So as you can see, transparency can really provide you with some very powerful design options when you want to work with files from Illustrator or from Photoshop, or a combination of the two in one document.